Hey guys, welcome back to Altaz-Review, where we talk about the latest gaming updates. It's still the first month of the new year, and there's some new ideas mixed with some classic tropes. The new big thing taking the gaming world by storm is Palworld, a monster-catching game that's also a third-person shooter survival open-world game. Yeah, they pretty much made one big dish with everything in it. Somehow, whatever the developers did ended up being exactly what players never knew they wanted. There's still a lot of debate going on about the game for a lot of different reasons. So let's talk about it a little more. After its initial teaser and reveal trailers, Palworld quickly became known as Pokemon with guns. Yeah, very strange premise, but it caught a lot of attention. Initially, it seemed like kind of a gag game or a reskin of Fortnite that just has pals instead of regular players. But as we found out more, Palworld seemed to be trying to create a genuinely complete experience that combines well-known gameplay elements into one big sandbox. Now in early access, it's become a lot easier to see where exactly the developers drew inspiration from. The most obvious thing would be the Pokemon-like pals, which use the same ideas like balls that catch monsters and how each monster has an element and specific moves it can use. It's essentially Pokemon and works in the same way with Pokemon battles. In terms of execution, it looks like it's based mostly off Legends of Arceus, considering how it uses the open world with freely moving Pokemon and how the Pokemon can hurt the player as well as your monsters. But the exploration seems to mimic more of a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild in the presentation and in traversal, like with gliding, swimming, and how you ride animals. And finally, the Fortnite-style shooting is probably the most alarming yet defining aspect of the game. Although your pals can use special moves in battle like Pokemon, you can also give them guns and other weapons to give them a little advantage depending on your opponent. But you as the player can also use guns and melee weapons like you're playing Fortnite Battle Royale against a knockoff Luxray, headshots and all. There's even base building that works similar to Ark Survival, so there's a lot of direct inspiration from several different famous games. But by combining one element of each of these innovative games, Palworld becomes like the Captain Planet of these video games. Just the most fun and best executed elements of each game. Not all these elements are seamless though, but they work well enough and it gives something interesting to focus on for every type of player. And with the multiplayer options, you can fight Poke Wars with your buddies too. Then we come to issues and controversies. Maybe it's because it's early access, but with trying to implement so many different ideas, the quality ends up lacking in many of these areas. There's a few choppy animations and some parts of the gameplay isn't too user-friendly. And there's one too many glitches even for an early access title. Of course, these issues can be fixed in the final release, but we can't be sure about how well they'll be able to deal with these issues, considering the game is apparently mostly complete. Some parts of the UI and game design need to be completely overhauled, since they make it hard to enjoy a few basic elements, like base management, pal management, or how the weapon system works. But even with so many issues, the overall game has kept everyone's attention more than enough, leading to Palworld having the third most concurrent players in history. For a game that's centered around imitation and is still early access, that's a bigger accomplishment than it already should be. In fact, that imitation itself has also led to some people to almost boycott the game. Pokemon fans in particular aren't too happy with the use of pals that basically function as Pokemon and add a few silly ideas to make it fun. But Palworld fans, along with some fans of both games, think that Palworld is doing what Pokemon should have done years ago. If you compare Palworld to Pokemon, then you'll see that Pokemon would actually look great with modern-gen graphics. Unfortunately, modern Pokemon doesn't even fully utilize the Switch's capabilities, considering how much better Legend of Zelda looks compared to the recent Pokemon games. The addition of base building and keeping all your pals together, and even the ways in which you can interact with them, brings a level of interactivity that we now expect from Pokemon. Technically, the guns are the only thing that Pokemon shouldn't be doing, and that they most probably will never do. And they're also what make Palworld even more fun. Sometimes you just want to chill and catch Pokemon and make them your team in a nice, calm way. And sometimes you want to bring a little chaos into this overly friendly environment. And Palworld helps us bring out that chaos without compromising quality. Sure, it still has a lot of gaps in what could be a revolutionary game, but there's still time till we get the final game. That's when we'll know if Palworld is a pretty good fusion of fan-favorite games, or if it's the true potential of AAA games brought out by smaller studios. But this whole discussion might be pretty much useless because of one big problem: the designs for the pals. Palworld isn't the first Monster Fighter video game, and it's definitely not copying Pokemon gameplay since I've never seen Pikachu fire an AK-47. But the designs of the monsters are way too similar to Pokemon. Normally, you'd expect a few details to be similar to a specific Pokemon. But Palworld went a strange direction. Most, if not all, of the pals are just fusions of two different Pokemon. The color palettes and art style make it so hard to miss, it looks like a crossbreed child of two randomly chosen Pokemon. And this is the case for pretty much every pal. Palworld mimics several game elements in other areas too, but copying the UI or animation style or even the idea of catching monsters in a ball from all these different games still feels like it's bordering between inspiration and plagiarism without really crossing that line. But the PAL designs are a little too on the nose. Given how unique some of the designs are for characters and objects and even some ideas, you'd think the PALs would be at least a little inspired. But this one element is where Palworld feels just lazy. It's also the one area where Nintendo might actually have a case to accuse them of copyright infringement. So, seeing the fate of every other game that feels a little too similar to a Nintendo game, Palworld may not survive long enough to release the full game. Or if it does, it might fade away soon after. Either way, we can't say too much about the future of Palworld until we know what Nintendo plans to do about it. Palworld is a strange premise that should have just had a few fans who only played it because they found it a little funny. But it ended up being a combination of games that has nearly limitless potential. What other uncanny combinations can we make? Pokemon Assassins, open world Mario shooter, Fortnite with survival mechanics? Palworld has opened up all the options, and as long as it survives, it's reaping the success of a well-taken risk. Well, there's still more drama going on with Palworld, and Nintendo has just begun addressing the existence of this game. I never thought Pokemon with guns would have its name cemented in history, but Palworld has surprised us in several ways, and even though it's not my cup of tea, I hope it continues its success and gives Pokemon a reason to approve its formula in the right direction. But that's just my take on this whole situation. What do you guys think about Palworld, and what do you think will happen to it after Nintendo enters the field? If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Until then, I hope I see you in the next video.